Good morning, Intro to Civilization class. Today we will be focusing on the ancient civilization of Israel. As we gear up for this week's ancient civilization, I would like to review quickly on the basic concepts of civilization. We learned in week 1 that many historians base their criteria for civilization as a group of people who have social structure, culture, government, religion, technology, stable food supply, and also writing. Up to this point, the civilizations we have discussed, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and India, are all very different, but they also have similarities. In all of these civilizations, the strong and powerful are considered very valuable. They are admired. The lower classes, however, have no to little value and are only seen as a means to an end, whether that end is to provide the upper classes with food, manual labor, or even human sacrifice. They were also all polytheistic. Worship of their gods can also be seen as a means to an end. Worship, sacrifice, honor in order to receive blessings, or maybe just an absence of a curse. Morals and ethics were not directly related to their religion. Appeasing gods did not necessarily mean living a good and honest life. Justice was relative, depending on who broke the law. Value of one's life depended on occupation and a little luck. There was little expectation for welfare or community outreach. You must live or die with the cards you were dealt. Then the Israelites take the stage. God takes an average, literal, middle-class, polytheistic Mesopotamian idol maker and sets him apart. Yahweh, in his typical fashion, takes the ordinary and makes them extraordinary. He makes a covenant with Abraham. He, who is presently childless, gets a promise that he will have more descendants than stars in the sky or sand along the seashore. He promises him an entire region, prime fertile soil, just west of his current hometown of Ur in Mesopotamia. This land is not just promised to him, but to his descendants forevermore. He promises to bless those who bless him and curse those who curse him. In exchange, Abraham must give up his polytheistic ways and believe in the one true God, along with everything else associated with Mesopotamia, and move to Canaan. As people living in the 21st century AD, we've got to remember throughout the story that this would have been completely countercultural at the time. Gods were seen as almost human-like, with human emotions, who did not care about their people. The Babylonians even believed the god Marduk created people only to bear the burden of hard work. Their only role was to serve and honor the gods. A god that wanted an actual reciprocal relationship with his people would have been unfathomable. Israel was weird, and it is that weirdness that helped keep their culture intact for 4,000 years. It kept them intact as they spent 400 years immersed in Egyptian culture and religion. It kept them intact when they wandered the desert for 40 years. They miraculously stayed intact even when their kingdom fell and they were spread out all over Europe, Asia, and Africa during the diaspora. No other civilization that has been conquered so many times has stood the test of time like the Israelites. God continues to repeat his promise that he gave Abraham to Abraham's son Isaac, then to Jacob, and even later to Moses after escaping slavery in Egypt. As Moses is given the 10 Commandments, along with the multiple laws and regulations set up by God, one must know how different these laws were from other civilizations. Justice is seen in these laws, but also compassion can be found. There are no lesser punishments for higher classes because everyone in Israel is considered chosen by God and created in his image. God's people are judged on their actions, not just toward their God, but towards each other. Once kings were established in the United Kingdom of Israel 1,000 years after Abraham, one can see how these people are set apart from the rest of the ancient world as well. In a time when plotting against those in power and even regicide was common, David, as he is constantly fleeing from one attempted murder after another by King Saul, finds himself close enough to get revenge and kill his pursuer. Instead of performing such a justified act, even in this age and time, he merely cuts a piece of Saul's robe, unnoticed by the wearer. After David's heart is struck, or his conscience is struck, by his action, he vows to never raise a hand to Saul, who he sees as God's anointed, ever again. Furthermore, when David finally succeeds Saul as king, the expected action would be to execute any family member of the previous king in order to solidify the legitimacy of the new king. David instead seeks out Saul's only surviving descendant and gives him land and an open invitation at his table. This is a king and a civilization, unlike any other. This is a civilization that is actually civil. It is based on the worship of a God who actively seeks to have a relationship with his people and who expects personal responsibility and social justice. Each and every person has individual worth because they were created in the image of their Creator, has value based not on circumstance, but being a child of Yahweh. The foundation of Christianity is based on this same God and these same values. One cannot justify acts of abortion or racism or selfishness even, or retribution when you look at stories given to us in the Old Testament. If people truly believe that every person has individual worth, that means that all people, all are children of God, even the very youngest. Not a single justification is worthy of taking a life created in God's image. King David in Psalms states, "For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know very well. My frame was not hidden from you when it was made secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth." This is a great example of David, who was a mere shepherd boy. He would have never been considered special in any other civilization, but God took this ordinary person and made him extraordinary. He gave us examples of mistakes he made, but how he sought forgiveness and he showed grace to others. He was made extraordinary by not anything that he did, but through God alone. In such a time where truth is becoming more and more relative in our day and age, where social status determines a person's punishment, and people kill other people's reputations and livelihood only for values that different from their own, let's be weird like Israel. Let's be a people set apart. Let's be a group that people know that we are weird. Jesus made Israel even more countercultural. In a world where even the Israelites believed that justice was the standard, he tells a group, "You have heard it said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." In a world where the entire ancient civilization was out for themselves, there was social structure, there was religion, there was stable food supply, all the things that make a civilization a civilization. There is this one group that totally turns things upside down. They were weird. I challenge you to stand up for what is right and be weird like the Israelites.